Let me start with a question that might sting a little. Have you ever felt like no matter how hard you try, women always seem to hold the upper hand? You give, you chase, you try to be good enough, and yet somehow they're the ones deciding if you're wanted, loved, or left behind. That quiet imbalance, that invisible power, it shapes nearly every modern relationship. But here's the truth. Most men never realize women don't hold power because they're manipulative or cruel. They hold power because men give it to them unconsciously, emotionally, and often desperately. Before we go deeper, make sure to like this video and subscribe, because what I'm about to reveal will probably change how you see relationships forever. Most men have been conditioned to seek validation from women since childhood. Compliments from a girl felt like approval, rejection felt like failure, and that emotional wiring never really went away. So as adults, you still chase that same feeling, the nod of acceptance, the soft smile, the "you're enough." That's the hidden leash. You don't see it, but it pulls you. You move toward whoever gives you that approval and away from whoever takes it away. Meanwhile, women, often without even realizing it, sense this dynamic. They sense when a man's sense of worth depends on them, and that's when the balance shifts. She's no longer responding to you, you're reacting to her. She becomes the prize, and you become the applicant. And this right here is the quiet tragedy of modern masculinity. Strong men losing themselves in pursuit of female validation. But power doesn't disappear, it only transfers. When a man gives up his emotional sovereignty, he hands her the ability to control the rhythm of his confidence, his peace, and his sense of purpose. And the more emotionally dependent he becomes, the less attractive he appears. Because desire isn't born from neediness, it's born from independence, from mystery, from presence. So the real question isn't, why do women hold power over me? It's, when did I give it away? Because until you face that, every interaction, every date, every argument, every heartbreak will replay the same pattern. Her leading, you chasing, and your sense of worth depending on her approval. And that's the trap I'm going to help you break. Here's a truth most men never hear. Women don't actually want your approval. They want your response, your energy, your attention, your emotional bandwidth. And if you're constantly bending to please her, she feels it. She senses the desperation, the need, the insecurity, and it quietly erodes attraction. Attraction isn't about gifts, texts, or constant validation. It's about presence, confidence, and a man who has boundaries she can't bend. Most men think that being nice, being agreeable, and understanding will earn respect and love. But here's the catch. Respect and attraction don't grow from permission. They grow from strength. When you overextend emotionally, you give away your leverage. You teach her that she can hold the power of your emotions in her hands. And even if she loves you, even if she's loyal, that dynamic creates a subtle imbalance that undermines desire. Think about every time you felt anxious waiting for her text, every time you overanalyzed her words or actions. That stress, that emotional turmoil isn't just in your head. It's a reflection of her influence over your inner state. The moment she can make you doubt yourself, worry, or feel unworthy, she holds power. And most men never even realize it. They mistake it for love, for connection, or for normal relationship dynamics. It's not. It's control by emotional leverage. Breaking this cycle isn't about changing her. It's about reclaiming your emotional sovereignty. Start by observing your reactions, the jealousy, the anxiety, the overthinking. Notice the moments when your emotional state is dictated by her presence, words, or approval. That's the chokehold. And once you identify it, you can start loosening it. Here's what most men fail to understand. Women respond to a man who can hold his own space emotionally, not a man who follows, pleads, or explains himself endlessly. She will respect, desire, and connect with a man who is steady, grounded, and unmoved by her occasional tests of power. And the fascinating part, when you stop giving her the power to manipulate your emotions, she begins to respect you more, not less. You have to remember this. Emotional independence isn't coldness. It isn't detachment. It's mastery. Mastery over yourself. Because once you master your emotional world, her power to influence you diminishes. And what emerges is attraction that feels magnetic, unshakable, and real. Let's get even deeper, because most men never realize what really gives women power over them. It's not just your emotions. It's your beliefs about yourself. Every insecurity, every self-doubt, every unspoken fear becomes a lever she can pull without even trying. And the frightening part, you don't even notice it happening. You think you're interacting naturally, but every subtle comment, every shift in tone, every hesitation she senses feeds the narrative in your own mind.
I'm not enough. Think about this.
How many times have you held back in a conversation, trying to avoid conflict, avoid rejection, avoid her judgment? How often have you softened your opinions, toned down your energy, or filtered your humor because you were afraid of her reaction? That's giving away power. And here's the kicker. Women don't even have to consciously manipulate you for this to happen. Just your perception of her judgment, her potential disapproval, is enough to shift your behavior. Now here's the dangerous pattern most men fall into. They believe attraction is earned through effort. They think proving their worth, sacrificing their preferences, and accommodating every subtle demand will create loyalty. But effort without boundaries is weakness disguised as devotion. And what happens when weakness is disguised as devotion? The man becomes predictable. His value diminishes and attraction fades. She doesn't notice your effort. She notices your compliance. And compliance is not desire. The moment you start understanding this, you see women differently. You notice that their flirtations, their approvals, even their criticisms, these are not arbitrary. They are reactions to your energy, your presence, and your emotional autonomy. The power they hold isn't magic. It's conditional. It exists only in the vacuum where you let your self-worth depend on them. Breaking this pattern requires radical awareness. Begin noticing how often your thoughts orbit her reactions. Notice the anxiety when she's late to respond. Notice the little mental scripts you run, trying to predict her feelings. Each observation is a step toward reclaiming your mind. Emotional independence isn't about shutting her out. It's about reclaiming your internal world so that your value, your confidence, and your desire are generated from within, not borrowed from her approval. Once you internalize this truth, you stop being a passive participant in the relationship dynamic. You stop giving away power unconsciously. And that, my friend, is when the game changes. When she stops holding power over you and attraction finally becomes mutual, magnetic, and real. Here's where most men completely miss the mark. Women's power over you isn't just about your emotions or beliefs. It's about your attention. Where your focus goes, your energy flows. And if your attention is constantly centered on her moods, her reactions, her approval, you are feeding her influence without even realizing it. Every anxious text, every overanalyzed conversation, every mental replay of what she said, that's fuel. That's power transferred from you to her. Think about the last time you felt pulled in by a woman. You wanted her attention, validation, maybe even affection. And in that pull, you likely bent yourself, adjusted your energy, or over-explained your feelings. That's the trap. She doesn't have to tell you to do it. You do it because your emotional system is wired to seek her response. And here's the psychological truth. Attention equals power. The more you revolve around her, the more control she holds over your inner world. Now let's flip the script. Imagine a man who keeps his attention anchored in himself, his purpose, his growth, his passions, his goals. He notices her, he interacts, but he does not orbit her. His sense of value is not dependent on her responses. He is steady, grounded, magnetic. That shift from being emotionally pulled to being emotionally centered is the moment the power dynamic reverses. She begins to feel the need to earn your attention, not the other way around. This is the secret most men overlook. Attraction is a reflection of energy allocation, not effort, not validation, not gifts, energy. When you invest it indiscriminately in women whose presence triggers insecurity, you weaken yourself. When you invest it intentionally in your own life, you become irresistible. Women are not conscious of this calculation. They only feel the difference and they react accordingly. So start noticing how much mental space she occupies. Notice how often you anticipate her reactions, overanalyze her messages, or adjust your behavior to maintain her approval. Each of these is a silent surrender of power, and each surrender erodes attraction. But every step back, every moment you reclaim your attention for yourself, strengthens your presence, your confidence, and your unspoken authority. Remember, it's not about ignoring her. It's about prioritizing your energy, maintaining your internal compass, and refusing to let your sense of self be dictated by someone else's emotions. The more you master this, the less influence she has, and the more authentic your interactions become. And when that happens, attraction flips subtly, powerfully, permanently. Here's the hard truth most men never face. Women don't fall in love with your effort. They fall for the way you carry yourself, the way you manage your inner world, the way you handle life's uncertainties without collapsing into anxiety or neediness. The moment you rely on her to stabilize your emotions, you hand her a remote control to your confidence, your desire, and even your sense of identity. That's not attraction. That's dependency. And dependency kills desire faster than anything else. Think about every relationship that left you feeling drained, anxious, or small. The common thread isn't her behavior, it's your internal surrender. The way you allowed your fears, your doubts, and your desire for approval to guide your actions. That's the invisible power she held over you. And here's the reality. She didn't have to do anything extraordinary. She simply existed, and you responded in a way that reinforced your own vulnerability. The first step toward breaking free is radical ownership of your emotional state. You must stop outsourcing your confidence to anyone else. Stop relying on her texts, her moods, or her validation to determine how you feel about yourself. When you become the source of your own stability, you no longer react, you respond. There's a subtle but profound difference. Reaction is controlled by external forces. Response is controlled by your inner strength. Next, understand that boundaries are your weapon, not to control her, not to punish her, but to protect your energy, your focus, and your self-respect. When a man sets boundaries, he communicates clearly what is acceptable, not as a threat, but as a reflection of self-worth. And the paradox is this: the more you enforce these boundaries, the more respect, attraction, and even loyalty she feels. Women are wired to respond to clarity, confidence, and consistency, not neediness or chaos. Finally, realize this: the power she once held over you doesn't vanish overnight. It requires consistent self-mastery, awareness, and emotional discipline. But each step you take toward independence, each moment you prioritize your energy over approval, chips away at the invisible leash. And the transformation is remarkable, not just in how women perceive you, but in how you perceive yourself. You stop chasing, you start attracting. You stop bending, you start standing tall. And that, my friend, is the difference between a man who loses himself in relationships and a man who commands respect and desire effortlessly. Now, let's close the loop on this truth that most men will never admit to themselves. True power in relationships is not about controlling her, it's about controlling you. Every insecurity, every need for approval, every overanalyzed text, these are the levers she has been subtly holding over you. And when you reclaim your emotional authority, the dynamic changes completely. Suddenly, you're no longer chasing, you're choosing. Suddenly, your presence becomes magnetic because it's not available at every moment, not dictated by her mood or attention. Here's what most men never understand. Women are wired to respect strength, emotional clarity, and independence far more than they respect effort or charm. She feels it instinctively when a man is grounded in his own life, when he responds to her rather than reacts. That difference, subtle, invisible, yet undeniable, transforms desire into something intense and lasting. And the best part? It doesn't require manipulation. It doesn't require tricks. It requires self-mastery. Every text you resist overanalyzing, every moment you refuse to surrender your inner calm, every boundary you enforce without apology chips away at her power over you. And over time, this creates a quiet, magnetic authority. She begins to seek your approval, your attention, and your energy. The roles reverse, and the power balance is restored naturally, without drama or coercion. This is the hidden dynamic that men who struggle never see, until it's too late. Remember, the world conditions men to believe that love is earned, that validation must be given, and that effort equals attraction. But the truth is almost entirely the opposite. Attraction is born from independence, presence, and emotional control. Love grows when you operate from a place of self-respect, clarity, and consistency. And power over yourself is what makes you irresistible. So start today. Observe your reactions, notice your dependencies, and reclaim your attention and energy. Strengthen your boundaries, cultivate your inner world, and stop giving away the very thing women are drawn to, your emotional sovereignty. Once you do, you'll notice the change: attraction that feels magnetic, respect that feels earned, and relationships that no longer drain you, but elevate you. The secret is simple yet profoundly overlooked. Master yourself first. The rest, desire, respect, loyalty, will naturally follow. And that, my friend, is how women stop holding power over you and how you finally become the man you were always capable of.